Hi, this is Edward Troxel, and in today's video we're going to go through tracks and clips on the timeline to show how to go through each one of those, and we are going to look at the ones that are selected, and if they are selected we're going to deselect them. If they are not selected, then we are going to select them. So let's get started. First, I want to go ahead and set up my project in Premiere, and then we are going to create a new sequence. We'll just take the default sequence, and then let's create a new bin, and we'll put images in that bin. So open that up, then we're going to choose import, and these look like some good images to import, so we'll just import a bunch of them. Now I'm going to select several of them, drag them down to the timeline. Now let's select some more of them, put those on another track, and then let's select some more of them, and we'll add that on a third track. Now let's zoom in a little bit, and let's start selecting some events here. So we have several events selected on the track. So now let's look at our code and see what we're going to do to look at those clips. Let's start by opening the test script we were working on last time where we were looking at the version. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and delete both of those lines, and we're going to start over. So the first thing we need to look at is the sequence that we chose. So let's start with a new variable. We'll call it my sequence, and we are going to get that from the app.project.activeSequence, and that will give us the actual sequence that we have open in Premiere. Next, let's look at the type of tracks that we want to look at. So we are going to create a new variable. Track type list is going to be my sequence dot video tracks. If we wanted to look at the audio tracks, then we would change that to say audio tracks instead. Must be tracks. Then we are going to go through every one of these tracks. To do that, we are going to use a for loop. This loop is going to use a variable that starts at 0 and goes through the number of tracks that we have. So we want to start with our for, then we're going to create a variable. In this case we're going to call it I, and it equals 0. Then as long as I is less than the track list number of tracks, then we're going to increment I by 1. Then it will give us these curly brackets, and everything that's inside those curly brackets is what we're going to do in relation to this track. So inside these curly brackets we want to go through and look at all the clips that are on the track. Create a new variable. This track is track type list, and we want the ith one. So the first time it'll be the 0 track, the second time it'll be track 1, third time it'll be track number 2. When working with variables, typically our numbers will start with 0 and go through one less of the number we have. So in this case we have 3 tracks. It's going to go 0, 1, and 2. So now we need to go through all of the events that are on this track. So let's create another for loop. We're going to create another variable. In this case we're going to say j, and we're going to start with 0 as long as j is less than, and we're looking at this track dot the clips on the track, and how many of them are there, num items, and then we will increment J until we have gone through all the items on this track. Once again, we set another set of curly brackets, and this curly bracket says what are we wanting to do with this clip. So first of all, let's get this clip. So I'm just going to call it tclip equals this track dot clips, and we want the jth clip. So now that we have the clip, we need to determine, is this selected? So let's create another variable called clip selected, and we will set that to tclip dot is selected. We have to call the is selected method to get whether or not this clip is selected. Then we have to call the set selected method to actually set whether or not this is selected. Now there are various ways we could do this. For example, we could say if clip selected, then set to false, and then we could add another if not clip selected, and then having set to true, which that would be a lot of extra code that we really don't need. One thing we could do to simplify that would be to change this to an else. Then if clip is selected, we would set to false, else we would set it to true, but we're going to do it both directions with just one function call. So we want to set the selected the opposite of clip selected, so we will take tclip dot set selected, which is the method we are going to call, and then we have to tell it whether or not we want it true or false. So let's do not clip selected, and then this method wants one other call. If we set this to 1, it's going to go ahead and update the Premiere screen immediately. If we set it to 0, it is not. So let's go ahead and set it to 1, and then let's try to run this and see what happens. So I'm going to scoot this over so we can see our clips down here. Let's do it this way. Then we can see the tracks down here and see what's happening. So we will go to here. We have to hit our Control-Shift-A and choose Premiere. And now let's run this and see what happens. Notice the ones that were selected are no longer selected, and all the ones that were not selected are now selected. So let's do this again. And you will notice we are back to the original selection. This example shows how we can easily go through all of the tracks and all of the clips on each of the tracks in Premiere. It also shows how we can use the is selected and set selected methods in order to change the selection status on all of the events. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.